Every single country on Earth is in debt. Yes, really, every single one. And the numbers, they're staggering. The United States alone carries around $38 trillion in national debt, one of the highest figures in its entire history, the European Union. About 14 trillion, Japan, nearly 9 trillion, even oil-rich nations, even powerhouse exporters like Germany or China. None of them are exceptions. They all owe enormous sums. But here's the kicker. If everyone owes money, who exactly is owed? This isn't just a simple, someone lent me cash and I owe them back story. No, it's much deeper. It's about money, power, history, and trust. Welcome to the world of modern finance, a place where nothing is ever as simple as it seems. Debt isn't just a burden. Debt is the architecture of the modern world. Think about it. Every war, every financial crisis, every boom and bust, they all rest on an invisible scaffolding, built from IOUs, promises and contracts. And if you follow the chain long enough, tracing credit and debt from one end of the globe to the other, something unsettling becomes clear. The world doesn't owe money to some mystical, all-powerful rich guy. The truth? On a global scale, the world owes money to itself. But don't get it twisted. That doesn't mean everyone benefits equally. Some people benefit a lot more than others. To understand how we got here, we need to rewind the clock, way back. Long before credit cards, long before digital transfers. Let's go to 1694. England is at war with France. The crown is running desperately low on gold. Traditional funding methods aren't enough. So the king does something extraordinary. He turns to wealthy merchants and says, "Lend me your money, and I'll pay you interest using future tax revenue." Revolutionary. Absolutely revolutionary. It created a brand new financial mechanism. To manage it, the Bank of England was created. Suddenly, the state could spend money it didn't yet have, something previously unimaginable. And the lenders? They received something priceless, a promise from the government. Not just any promise, but one that could be bought, sold, traded. A bond. This was the birth of the government bond, one the seed of modern finance. Over time, France borrowed the same way. The Netherlands refined it. And when the newly independent United States came along, it used bonds to fund its revolution, and later its westward expansion. National debt, once seen as a weakness, became a measure of credibility. If you could borrow, people believed in you. If you could issue bonds, you had legitimacy. Borrowing became power. Empires once conquered lands for gold. Now they issue bonds to extract interest. The battlefield is no longer dusty plains or river valleys. The battlefield is spreadsheets, balance sheets, and trading desks. Power has moved into finance. Fast forward centuries, and debt remains the world's dominant export. Countries lend to one another. Banks lend to governments. Citizens, through taxes, pensions, and savings, are both borrowers and lenders. So, who's holding the other end of the rope? Take the United States. Out of its roughly $38 trillion in debt, about half is publicly held, owed to private investors, not just government institutions. Much of this is held by American banks, pension funds, insurance companies, and even the Federal Reserve. The rest? Held by foreign investors. And here's the wild part. This creates a strange feedback loop. The Treasury issues bonds. Banks and funds buy them. The Fed sometimes buys them back. New money enters circulation. Taxes pay the interest. And those interest payments flow back into American retirement accounts. It's like a mirror. The debt is real, but the creditor is often just a reflection of the same system. And this isn't only in the US, it's everywhere. Japan buys US treasuries. The US lends to Europe through the IMF. Europe lends to developing nations. Some of those nations park their reserves in Western bonds. It's a planetary game of hot potato. Except the potato is made of promises, and the only rule? Nobody stands up. But there's another, even more powerful layer, the markets. Behind every government bond sits a web of institutions, hedge funds, pension funds, sovereign wealth funds, central banks, all managing tens of trillions of dollars. They are not passive players. They decide which nations can borrow cheaply, and which pay a premium for survival. When confidence falters, the consequences are immediate. Currencies collapse. Governments fall, economies can be reshaped overnight. Democracy chooses leaders. But the markets often decide who survives, and the ultimate market maker, the central bank. Central banks don't just manage debt, they manufacture it. Every time the Federal Reserve or the European Central Bank buys government bonds, they create new money. One entity's liability becomes another's asset. Every dollar, euro, digital unit, somewhere it carries an invisible IOU, debt-free money. It doesn't exist. Every coin, every bill, every entry in a ledger represents a promise, a debt. And over decades, this system has survived because people believe in it. As long as investors believe governments will pay interest, even if the principal is never repaid, the machine keeps spinning. But confidence can falter. We've seen it. Greece, 2010. The government's debt became unmanageable. Bond yields spiked. Investors panicked. The ECB and IMF intervened. But the rescue came at a cost. Austerity, tax hikes, spending cuts, mass unemployment. Bailout became synonymous with sacrifice. And Greece is not alone. Argentina defaulted repeatedly. Sri Lanka collapsed when it couldn't service its foreign obligations. Puerto Rico, too. Decades of debt restructuring, broken promises, social consequences. When the system breaks, the real creditors become visible. The IMF, credit rating agencies, anonymous bondholders controlling nations by the throat. Yet, even after collapse, the cycle often restarts. Old debts are restructured. New loans replace old ones. The system resets. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. In the 21st century, debt was never designed to be fully repaid. It's meant to be rolled over. This is not conspiracy, it's policy. Governments don't plan to wipe out debt. They refinance it, issue new bonds to pay off maturing ones. Interest is the real product, the rent for stability. The global economy depends on it, like a shark depends on water. It must keep moving or it dies. The US carrying $38 trillion? Not necessarily a disaster. Investors see US debt as the safest collateral in the world. Pension funds hold it. Banks use it as security. Central banks treat it as money. If by miracle the US repaid it all tomorrow, disaster. Banks lose their most stable asset. The dollar supply could shrink. Deflation, collapse. Ironically, paying off debt would destroy the very system holding the economy together. So governments do the opposite, issue more bonds, rhythmically, sustainably. Debt becomes capitalism's heartbeat, pulsing through pensions, mortgages, savings, and yes, global markets. When politicians talk about balancing the budget or paying down the national debt, they may only be telling part of the story. The real goal? Keep the debt sustainable, keep the promise believable, keep confidence alive. Because once belief fades, once confidence breaks, everything unravels. Interest rates spike, economies wobble, the illusion cracks. The core secret of sovereign debt? It was never meant to be fully repaid. The system exists so the world keeps believing it will be repaid. And belief is powerful. As long as people believe, the loop continues. But this loop isn't fair. We owe it to ourselves? Partly true, but incomplete. Interest payments flow upward, from taxpayers and workers to financial institutions and investors. Debt is not just a transfer between countries, it's a transfer between classes. Creditors are not villains, debtors are not victims, they're two sides of the same engine. And what happens when the engine runs out of fuel? When borrowing cannot keep up with past promises? That's when who is owed stops being abstract and becomes very personal. At the top of the global pyramid, there's no single villain, not China, not Wall Street, not the IMF. It's all of us. People, institutions, governments. We built this system. We rely on it. Modern finance has turned debt into money. Governments issue it. Banks multiply it. Investors trade it. Citizens live with it. What once meant bondage now means balance, but fragile. And if trust ever breaks, the illusion ends. At that point, we're left with a truth. Debt is a promise, and promises don't always last. If this perspective opened your eyes, consider subscribing. Understanding the hidden architecture of finance helps us see beyond headlines, and maybe rethink money, power, and trust. Thanks for watching. Drop a comment below and let me know which country you're watching from. and what you think about all this. I'd love to hear your thoughts.